Welcome. We are so glad you joined us for our very first Native Plants at Noon on the road. I'm Tammy Thompson, Outreach and Conference Manager for Deep Roots. And this is, as most of you know, one of my very favorite days of the month. And I love a road trip. And I love natural areas. So today we get both. And happy birthday, Eve. As a special Earth Day prize, we're going to give a gift to one lucky viewer at the end of the broadcast who participates in the chat with your favorite ephemeral. So participate and stay tuned. Next month, we will be back at the Anita B. Gorman Conservation Area. But today we are taking a road trip to the Big Buffalo Creek Conservation Area in East Central Benton County, Missouri. Big Buffalo Creek Conservation Area has one designated natural area, the Big Buffalo Creek Fen Natural Area. The Fen is a 40-acre portion of the conservation area with natural features that include a small spring-fed fen, a spring branch and creek, dolomite glades, and a forest. Sedges dominate the fen vegetation, and blue flag, marsh coneflower, Rydell's goldenrod, willow, and the rare bushy aster are also found here. So I hope you packed your snacks, and let's discover this beautiful Missouri Department of Conservation area together. So today, Lisa San Diego, Assistant Natural History Biologist, will walk us through this Missouri treasure and show us all of the beauty that this space has to offer at this time of year. And you're going to be blown away. Because the filming is outside and on a cell phone, you may need to adjust your volume up and down a little. And the video may stall just a bit here and there, and we just ask that you forgive us because we wanted to get out in this area. It's pretty smooth, but we wanted to let you know that there will be a hiccup here and there in the video, but it's going to be well worth it because Lisa has so much knowledge and enthusiasm to share, and you wouldn't believe how many ephemerals were out when they got out there. So during the program, if you have questions, please note those in the Facebook comments or in the Q&A tool on Zoom, and we will get to as many of those as we can. I'll be using the chat to send you the names of the plants mentioned. So let's get started. First, we want to express a huge thank you to the Missouri Department of Conservation for their partnership on this series and everything they do to help encourage and empower people to plant more native plants and enjoy them in the wild. With that, I'm going to welcome Lisa San Diego at the Big Buffalo Creek Conservation Area. And we're going to play this video. So Lisa, take it away.
Department of Conservation, and welcome to Big Creek Conservation Area. So this conservation area is just on the edge of the Ozark Highland ecoregion, which is considered one of the most significant highland regions in central North America due to the high biodiversity. And we are within the Big Buffalo Creek watershed priority geography, which is over 27,000 acres of high quality woodland and forest complexes with Ozark streams. So this conservation area is located in two counties, Benton County and Morgan County. Today, we're in Benton County, and this conservation area is over 3,600 acres, and it includes mostly forested woodlands with high-quality streams, as well as a natural area, which we'll get to in a sec. And it includes almost 20 miles of hiking trails. So let's see what we can find. All right, so we found some spring ephemeral flowers blooming. And spring ephemerals are so called because they bloom, they fruit, and they wither away before summer. So it's a very short time period. And the reason they're able to do that is because, as you can see right now in the early spring, the trees have not leafed out yet. So all of the sunlight that would normally get stopped by the canopy is able to hit the ground. So that means springs are special times in the woodlands. And honestly, the best time to be in a woodland is in the spring. And this is why. So we have a couple different species around us right now. So here is Rue Anemone here. And this is a cute little spring ephemeral. Yep, It's very cute. It has small little kind of barely lobed leaves, which really sets it apart from its look-alike, false Rue Anemone. But this is the one that we see. These little barely lobed leaves. It's a cute little thing. And it's pollinated by bees and flies and butterflies. Now, let's see. Here we have Toothwort, which also has very interesting leaves. These flowers look a little sad, but you know, it's nature, so nothing's quite perfect. So this little plant's also pollinated by bees and flies. Cool little thing. Let's see. Oh, and then up here, let me scoot ahead a little bit. So here we have Larkspur, or Dwarf Larkspur, and it hasn't bloomed yet, which is a bit of a shame, but because when it blooms, it'll have beautiful dark purple flowers. So you can see the flower buds just barely starting, but haven't bloomed yet. And that's a really interesting one because it's pollinated by bees, butterflies, even hummingbirds like that one. And I just want to say, while we're talking about beautiful spring ephemerals, a lot of these flowers are beautiful and you might want them for your own garden, but please don't dig up plants and transport them home. For once, on one hand, it's illegal, so don't do that. And on the other hand, to be perfectly honest, a lot of these plants transport really poorly. So you would also be wasting your time. So just get them from a reputable nursery. Let's see. Oh, there's some mayapple over here. This is a good one. So mayapple is starting to spring up now. It kind of looks like closed umbrellas, but soon they'll open up. And it's a really interesting plant because you see here there's 2 leaves going and then 1 flower bud. And they only flower from forked stalks. So not all of the plants will produce flowers. And Native Americans used to eat the fruit that comes from these, hence the name mayapple. But just a word of caution, the unripe fruit and any other part of the plant is extremely toxic. So please don't eat it, I should say. And actually, box turtles will actually eat the fruit, and so will some rodents. So let's see, we'll have to find some more spring ephemerals for more. All right, we found some more spring ephemerals. Well, and some other spring blooming flowers. So here we actually have Lousewort, which is a very interesting plant. And see, it's right here. It's all around. So this plant is interesting. Look, he's got a little Rue Anemone friend, but it hasn't quite bloomed yet. But this plant's fascinating because it is actually hemiparasitic. So it helps, partially feeds on the surrounding plants. And that's one of the reasons it's rather colonial, which means you don't find just one plant. It's kind of a little patch of it here. And it's not blooming yet, but when it does bloom, it'll have these yellow flowers kind of circling. And let me tell you, bumblebee queens love this plant. Oh my gosh, it is so valuable for bees and other, long-tongued bee species. Let's see. Oh, we have some Trillium too. Let me move out of the way. So Trillium is also known as wake robin, and that name is from it used to be thought that this plant would bloom and come up the same time that robins would wake up, which is kind of cute. So this plant's interesting because you see it has these, this is sessile Trillium. So it has these kind of splotches on the leaves, and then see these maroon parts here. And then look, we have some more Trillium over here. You can see it's still green, but this one's nice and pretty right there. That's a really neat plant. And Trillium is definitely a spring ephemeral. And it's an interesting plant because a lot of spring ephemerals, their seeds have these structures called elaiosomes attached to them. And essentially you can think of that structure as like a mini hamburger, something fat-rich and delicious that ants will really like. Because in a woodland, it's these plants they've adapted to have kind of a different way to spread their seed around and to disperse in the habitat. You can't really use wind because it's not typically really windy in woodlands. So instead, a lot of these spring ephemerals have elaiosomes, or the little hamburger, attached to it. So when they fruit and they set out seed, the ants are like, oh, this is awesome. They grab the fruit and they take it home and they eat the elaiosome, or the hamburger, and then they're like, oh, we don't really want this seed part. We just wanted the tasty part. So they throw it in their trash pile. And that is how some of these plants spread to new areas. It's really cool. All right. Now we have an Ozark fen behind me. So let's go talk about that. So, fallen in there. So, Big Buffalo Creek Conservation Area has a 40-acre natural area. And this natural area contains Ozark fen, which is what you see before. It's this kind of grassy area with no little trees growing in it. It's just kind of a lot of grasses and shrubs and some forbs. And Ozark fens are rare and really freaking cool because 10,000 years ago, Missouri used to be, had covered by glaciers, some of it anyway. And as the climate changed and those glaciers retreated, it left some kind of pockets. And some of the species that were able to persist across a large part of Missouri, they were then only able to stay in these little fen areas. And Ozark fens are fed by groundwater, clear, mineralized groundwater that seeps up. So it's perpetually saturated with water and it's about the same temperature year round. So these glacial relic species, animal and plant species, were able to stay and keep on living in these small little areas. It's really cool stuff. We're not going to go in the fen because, again, like I said, saturated with water, really wet, and also really fragile. If we were to stomp around in there, we'd damage it, and we don't want to do that at all. So we're just going to admire it from afar. And also we're going to keep our shoes dry as well. Really cool area. All right, let's see what else we can find. Hey, so we actually had some good luck leaving the fen and we found a lousewort that's blooming. So look at this guy down here. See how I told you it would have these yellow flowers that would kind of spiral around it? And you could tell that only a little bit, only some flowers are blooming at the base, but soon all of this will bloom. So it'll be like a little, it'll be a really cool looking plant. And like I said, you could see the really long part of the flower here. So only bees with really long tongues can reach it. So what a nice little find. And then, oh look, a small little Trillium as well. Some maroon flowers. All right, found some more. So this really cool flower is called Bloodroot. You can see it right here. This flower is so named because of the reddish sap that it exudes. And look at the very interesting leaf shape it can have. It's a really unusual, cool plant. And the Native Americans used it for to cure many different ailments. However, we found that, current evaluation of it, there doesn't seem to be really any known medical benefit. And in fact, it's toxic in a lot of cases, so it's not recommended to eat it. But let's see, it's a really interesting plant that you don't see very often outside of this habitat. And oh, I see Spring Beauty though, which is a pretty common one. It's over here. All right. This is a really good Spring Beauty plant. It's one of our earlier spring ephemerals. See, it has only 2 little leaves here, which is one of the things that points out to it being Spring Beauty. And the flowers can be pinkish like this, or they can be fully white. And it's pollinated by bees as well. And there's actually this one specific bee called the Spring Beauty minor bee, which is a specialist, meaning it only visits Spring Beauty. And the females actually collect the pink pollen on the hairs on their legs, which sounds adorable. And rodents will actually dig up Spring Beauty to eat the corms, which are kind of thickened roots at the base. But it's a neat one. You see it in a wider variety of habitats than some others. But it's always a nice find in early spring. All right, so we found some more spring ephemerals. So this one I'm really glad we found because the flower is super neat. This plant right here is called Bellwort. And it's got these really interesting pendulous blooms, right? And its name, the scientific name is Uvularia. And that name actually comes from because people thought it resembled the uvula, which is a little structure that hangs in the back of your throat. So that's Bellwort, which is a really interesting plant. And then, and it is, again, like I said, a spring ephemeral, and its seeds are spread by ants. So it has that little lyosome, the little hamburger that the ants grab on and drag around. So, we have another interesting kind of, again, pendulous flower right here. This plant is called Trout Lily. Here, let's see if I can. And look, it's got a little beetle buddy. I don't know if you can see it. There you go. Got a little insect on him. So Trout Lily is also called dog-tooth violet, but that name's a little misleading because it's not a violet at all. It's actually in the lily family. And you see these interesting spotted leaves. So you see the leaves before the flower. So I want you to look here. Trout lily, trout lily, trout lily, trout lily. It's everywhere. It kind of forms these large groups, and you see a lot of it at once. And Big Buffalo Creek Conservation Area is a really great place to look for woodland spring ephemeral flowers. And this is a really great example of that. Just while I'm sitting here on the woodland floor, we have the Bellwort, we have the Trout Lily, and then look, we also have Bloodroot. See one of those strange Bloodroot leaves, just very cool looking. And then we have some little Rue Anemones blooming here, little pinkies, cute. And then, another little Trillium or wake robin. It's not quite maroon yet. It's a little early on. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a much better Trillium right there. And then, off to the side is a really nice looking Toothwort. That one looks really nice. And then, I see a small understory tree, which is, you see in high quality woodlands. Let's take a look at that one. It has a flower too. Not a spring ephemeral, but just an early spring flower. So this tree, some of you may know, it is a Paw Paw tree. You've heard that before. And the bloom is just starting. It's this tiny little pendulous bloom. And when it's in full bloom, it's this dark maroon color. And it's maroon because it's pollinated by flies. And some people say it has a foul odor as well. And Paw Paw is a really interesting tree because it produces large fruit. I mean, I'm talking like kidney bean shaped, like good sized fruit. That's actually quite delicious. Native Americans used to eat a lot of it. A lot of people today currently eat it. Very tasty. And again, it is legal to collect fruit on conservation, or to collect food on conservation land for personal consumption. So you can't collect it all and sell it. But if you're collecting it for your own table, that's all right. But I will, if you want to collect Paw Paw fruit, you have to be warned, everything else loves it too, because squirrels love it. Like, so if you find a fresh one, one that's actually ripe, you're pretty lucky because everything else likes it. We have a picture of Paw Paw flower right here. Let me get one. All right. We weren't sure if we could see it today, so we wanted to be careful and print it out just in case. So see these maroon flowers? Obviously, they're much smaller than this. They're probably about that big in size. But in just a little bit, all the Paw Paw trees will be blooming, and they'll have these beautiful maroon flowers hanging from them, like little bells. And then later in the summer, you can get fruits. Again, if you're lucky enough to get before the animals do. All right, let's see what else we can find. All right, so here's a nice example of an Ozarkian stream in the area. So this stream, you can tell that it has, gravelly bottoms and clear, decent flow water. And the rock on the bottom is actually called chert, and it's a type of rock that is very hardy, and it actually it sticks around much longer than other rocks, which is why we're seeing it here. It doesn't break down as fast. And Native Americans actually used it to make arrowheads. Another name for it is flint. And our Missouri state rock is actually Mozarkite, which stands for Missouri Ozark. So again, our state rock is a type of chert as well. Now let me see if I can find a nice example that shows some of the different colors you can see in different colors based on the type of minerals that are in it. Let's see here. This is a good example right here. Can you see the different colors that are in there? And sure, it can have blue in it, it can have red in it, or orange in it. You can see so many different colors. It's all from the different minerals that are in it. So yeah, Big Buffalo Creek Conservation Area has a lot of these streams in it. And it's one of the this is actually one of the tributaries to Big Buffalo Creek itself, which is what the area was named for. All right, so here's another one. This one I really like, and I'm glad that we found it today. Because again, we're a little early for spring ephemerals, so not everything's up yet, but look what we found. This is phlox. And it is a woodland indicator plant, meaning that if you see it, it indicates that, yep, you're in a woodland. Although you can see it kind of on the edge of yards and things like that. You do see it in woodlands. And if we were a little bit further along, maybe like in 2 weeks, this place would be loaded with phlox. Because again, yep, here's a little one, not quite ready to go yet, but getting there. And this is a beautiful dark purple phlox, but you can see them in a wide variety of colors. You can see they could be light purple, dark purple, kind of bluish even, or even light pink or white. So it's a really versatile little plant. And then, oh, look, we have another little Ohio buckeye. I'm squatting around. And yeah, so you see it's getting along, not blooming yet, like that, you know, but it'll get there. And then I actually saw a rattlesnake fern, which is not a strict woodland plant, but you can see it in woodlands. So let's go take a look at that one. So this little cute guy right here is a rattlesnake fern. And to be perfectly honest, I'm not 100% sure why it's called a rattlesnake fern, but my guess is it's due to how its fruiting body looks like. So you can't tell right now, but soon, ding, it'll set up a little stalk that will look just like that. It'll have a little fruiting structure on the end. And it kind of, to me, kind of looks like a little rattlesnake tail. So maybe that's what the name gets from. But it's a cool little plant that you can see around here. Yeah. All right, so here we have Jacob's Ladder, which is a really interesting spring ephemeral. And you can see it has this whole thing is a leaf and these little opposite leaflets. Burp, 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 burp. So that really sets it apart and makes it easy to identify. And this one isn't quite ready to bloom yet. But here's some blooms from another one that we saw. These beautiful little pale purple, kind of pale blue blooms. And they're really popular with bees. It's a great bee pollinator plant. And let's see what else we have. Oh, we have a very nice patch of bloodroot. Look at these leaves right here. Really nice patch of bloodroot while we're here. And then I actually see something new that we haven't seen yet. So this little plant here is called blue-eyed Mary. And you can see the upper petals are white and the lower petals are blue. So it really stands out and is an interesting flower. And actually, these are blue-eyed Marys here. These are blue-eyed Marys. There's actually quite a lot of it here. It's just not blooming yet. Because again, we're a smidge early for some spring ephemerals. It kind of varies year by year on when exactly everything pops up due to temperature and all that. So we're a smidge early, but I bet in just a few weeks or so, this place is going to be loaded with blue-eyed Marys. Whenever I've seen it in the wild, it's always in kind of large, almost colonies. It's a really cool plant with a really small, delicate flower that you see a lot of. And in this area is really a nice little trail to walk on. It's a great example. You can see tons of Ohio buckeyes. Again, that understory tree that's just trying to leaf out and hasn't quite flowered yet. With lots of it there and there. Basically, any green leaves you see is the Ohio buckeye. And I don't know how well it's showing up on camera, but there's tons of spring ephemeral flowers here right now. And this is a great trail for spring ephemerals. I mean, I see, Rue Anemone. I've seen phlox. We had, Jacob's Ladder. I've seen more blue-eyed berries. There's quite a lot of spring ephemerals here. Spring beauty. Trillium. So actually, we have one last plant yet. It's all coming. Follow me through the jungle. These guys are called bluebells, which the name does make sense. Cute little sweet looking blue purpley bells hanging. And you can see the pink is unopened flowers. And this is a really nice spring ephemeral. And honestly, I think it's a pretty large one too. It can be a pretty hefty plant in size. Again, compared to some of the other spring ephemerals we've looked at today, these are pretty big plants. And they're very popular with bees. Bumblebees love them. And like the other ephemerals, they pop up, they flower, they fruit, and they go away. It's almost like they melt away in summer and they're gone. And unfortunately, I should say, they are very popular with people poaching them from the land. People do like to dig them up and take them home. But again, you can buy these at a reputable nursery. So please don't do that. You know, leave nature in its place, and you can buy a nice garden specimen for your woodland. And we typically see these plants in floodplains, you know, so kind of wetter areas of woodlands. Well, that about sums up our Big Buffalo Creek Conservation Area. I hope you enjoyed the spring ephemerals we saw today. I certainly did. It's always nice getting out in spring, and you know, winter's finally warming up. Oh, it's so nice to be out of it. So I hope your interest is piqued. I hope you want to visit Big Buffalo Creek Conservation Area, again, down in Benton and Morgan counties. It's a great place to recreate with your family. You can fish, you can hunt, you can swim, you can hike, you can horseback ride, you can even camp in our campsite where there's a bathroom, there's a pit toilet, which is nice. So there's tons of activities for you to do with your family and leashed pets. There's lots of trails to walk. There's some steep ones if you want a good workout. There's also some nice, like the trail we're on right now, is a nice, smooth, easy walking trail that actually kind of follows Big Buffalo Creek just a little bit. So again, beautiful area to visit, especially on a day like today, where the weather is perfect and everything's just waking up, which is wonderful to see. So thanks for coming along with me. Hope to see you soon.
Thank you for the text message from my friend who said I was muted. Thank you guys for your patience. Lisa, that was amazing. We had a couple of questions. Lisa, come on in and we'll pose some questions to you and see if we can't stump you. A few of you asked where we were. There's our star of our show.
Hello.
Yes, you were at Big Buffalo Creek Conservation Area, and that's what is the town where there's a good trailhead, or what town? I know we're in Morgan and Benton counties, but where's a good like landmark where we can get close?
Absolutely. So I'm out of, the Kansas City area. So we come from the north. So we always drive through Coal Camp, Missouri. Also Stover, Missouri is north of it as well. So we typically hit up Coal Camp on the way down there.
Awesome. It's got a cute little downtown in Coal Camp as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an adorable little town.
I was surprised how many ephemerals you guys were able to find so early.
Me too. We were worried because we'd been out in the woodlands, doing other work previously, and we're like, oh my gosh, like we're not going to have anything to talk about. But once we were there, I mean, it's such a high quality conservation area with beautiful woodlands. And yep, we were like, oh wait, there's one there. There's one, we're finding all sorts of species.
Super. That's amazing. So we do have a couple of good questions. Jeanette asks, what's the difference between Rue Anemone and false Rue Anemone?
Mm-hmm. So they are completely different plants. They don't have the same genus. They're not very closely related on that regard. How I tell them apart is their leaf shape. They both have lobed leaves. However, the Rue Anemone, which is what we saw in the video, the leaves are only kind of slightly indented. They're only slightly lobed versus the false Rue Anemone. The leaves have deeper lobes, which I understand is kind of awkward to talk about. But if you see a picture of the leaves of both of them, their lobation is pretty different. That's what I mainly use because I don't always have the flower to go off of.
Yeah, you wouldn't for most of the year.
Yes.
Yeah.
And false Rue Anemone is also a spring ephemeral plant. It's much more colonial in its growth as well. So you saw in the Rue Anemone in the video, there was a few plants kind of scattered around here and there, but with false Rue Anemone, you typically see large swaths of it. So kind of if you see a lot of colonial growth, it points more towards false Rue Anemone as well.
That's great. Jeanette also says, so much diversity of ephemerals, which we've talked about. How often is prescribed burn used in this conservation area?
Oh, it's dependent on a lot of factors, what the managers of the area deem is appropriate, and then whether fire itself is hard to plan for sometimes because it's so weather dependent. The wind direction has to be correct, the humidity has to be correct to do a burn. So yeah, it's pretty variable as often as they can with what is appropriate for woodland, but typically aim for it about every 5 years or so.
Okay.
Mhm.
And Stacia asks kind of along the same lines. She says, I'd also like to learn how MDC manages this woodland to keep it a high quality conservation area.
Mhm. Well, I'm not a part of that management team myself, so I can't, give any really true insight into that. I mean, prescribed burning is a very important component of it. Treating invasive species on the property is a very important component of that as well. So there's a couple different factors also for healthy timber management, but I can't give details of that. We can reach out afterwards and try to give more details about what types of woodland management they do at Big Buffalo to keep it looking so nice.
That's awesome. And it is amazing. Teresa asks, are sweet williams the same as woodland phlox? That's a good question.
Yep, they are. There's a lot of common names for plants. Like we had dogtooth violet is the same thing as trout lily. And so yes, that is the same plant.
Awesome. Great question. And last question, what are the showiest spring ephemerals from a distance when they make a colony besides bluebells? That's from Karen.
Yeah. That's a little subjective, but I feel like we always see woodland phlox because I don't know if it's because it's taller, and I feel like that's pretty showy from a distance. Let me think.
Dutchman's breeches.
Oh, yeah. Dutchman's breeches is a plant that we did not see at Big Buffalo, but it can be pretty showy from a distance. It's a cute little plant. The flowers actually look like they're almost like a pair of pants hanging on a line to dry, hence the name Dutchman's breeches.
Dutchman's breeches, yeah.
Yeah. So that as well, but yeah, a lot of them can be pretty showy when they're kind of massed together, and others, as you're walking in a woodland, you're like, oh, hey, that cute little white flower there and there. So they're a little more subtle, some of them.
They're amazing. Well, Lisa, that's the end of our questions. And wow, look at the time. You did such a great job. And I loved hearing the leaves under your feet. And I loved hearing the, as much as wind noise kind of blocks things, it felt like we were really out there with you. So thank you so much for your time. And I know that you had to plan this so well. And thanks for taking our questions today. So I will go ahead and close with a few, we're giving a prize, remember, so I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen and close us out for the day. All right. So to learn more about what's going on at the Missouri Department of Conservation Areas, you can go to mdc.mo.gov and search for events. The Deep Roots site also has references for native plants. So hop on over there and see what more you can learn. We also have area native plant sales on our site. Lisa talked about finding good sources for ephemerals. So check out those native plant sales as well. And speaking of events, don't miss our Deep Roots Native Plant Extravaganza this Saturday in Prairie Village, Kansas. It's at the pool parking lot. We will have a food truck, 4 amazing nurseries, soil specialists, and our calorie pair buyback pickup there. Also next Wednesday on the 27th, we will revisit our suburban garden to explore native plants as they intersect with wildlife right in the middle of the city. It's a great one, and I don't think you'll want to miss it. And finally, we are coming to a close for our calorie pair buyback recall event and campaign. If you would like to get a free tree, native tree, for cutting down an invasive calorie pair, today is the last day to register. So find all of these events on our website at deeproots.org/events. If you have missed any of our episodes, you can find them all at deeproots.org. We record all of them and post each one. We will also be sending out the resources like the plant list that Lisa provided to us out to you on those resources as well, both via email and on our website once we get the recording up and running. So our lucky prize winner today, we are awarding a prize to the person who put in Blue-Eyed Mary as their favorite ephemeral, and that is Martha Sherman. Martha, I should have your email address, so I'm going to reach out to you. We are going to send you a pack of our Deep Roots note cards. Sorry, it escaped me. It's an 8-pack of artist note cards, and each note card has a different native plant. So we thank you all for participating in that, and we want you to have a wonderful day, and we will see you back here on May 19th for the next one. Thank you. Have a great afternoon.